Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of the Behind the Steel Curtain flagship podcast. The standard is the standard, obviously. Joining me, as always, is Lance Williams out on the West Coast. Lance, what's up tonight? How you doing?
I actually am pretty excited. I got a jersey on. I never wear jerseys for the show. And I don't know if you guys can see it, but this is my white Jerome Bettis jersey that I typically only wear for playoff games. So
Ooh.
that's a little clue as to me being somewhat joyous, trying to sort of be like my co-host and be a little more optimistic and joyous about the 2019 season.
Yeah, because it's been a minute since we've had a show together. 2 weeks ago, I was on vacation. You were on vacation last week, so it's been about 2 weeks since we've talked. And since then, you stunned the heck out of me and doing your I said it, and we're optimistic and pumped up and ready for the season. I thought that someone had, I don't know, had a gun to your head maybe and said you better say something positive about the Steelers or else you know what's going to happen. I'm not sure. Nonetheless, I like this side of Lance Williams. I thought that was a very good episode. If you haven't checked that out, it's only on our audio platforms right now. But hopefully starting this week, we're going to get Lance on YouTube weekly. Are you ready for that, Lance?
That'll be awesome. I can, you guys don't realize when I do, I said it, I edit the show. So it'll be a challenge to.
Oh my gosh. Can we have I wish there was someone in the live chat that would just give us $1 every time you mispronounce someone's name. That would be.
Hey, that's a super chat, like in a super chat. Like every time I mispronounce someone's name, somebody in the super chat should give us $1. And the gun to my head last weekend, why I was so positive, was a pina colada. So
there you go. Everyone has their own rhyme and reason.
Yeah, that pina colada had me really fired up and really positive because when I did the show, I left the next day for the Bahamas. So I was in vacay mode. But I might stay in that mode. I like that mode. That mode is, I like that mode. And you kind of were in my typical mode when you subbed for me for the I said it when you talked about what Tomlin, why Tomlin has to change. So
yeah, I didn't think I was too negative. I thought that was just honest. I mean, would you disagree with that fact that?
No, he needs to change. I mean, they didn't make the playoffs, so obviously there are some things that he can improve upon. I liked your point about the challenges. How if they win challenges, he will get no credit.
None. They could change nothing. They could change nothing. Terrell Austin could just work with the secondary. And someone will say, well, the only reason he's winning challenges this year is because Terrell Austin is on the coaching staff. So he's damned if you do, damned if you do. But anyways, we're back. We're together. Training camp is back. The players are back. And today was the first padded practice. Lance, you've got a whole rundown that you want to get us through. What do you want to talk about first?
Well, the first thing I wanted to ask you, Jeff, we were talking about being positive this year.
Mm-hmm.
You're typically positive about everything. You kind of have like a positive meter. We'll go 1 through 5. Where are you at for this upcoming season?
Is 5 being the most?
Yes, 5 being the most. 1, you can even use 0 if you want to use 0. But where are you at in terms of excitement for this 2019 campaign?
This is I was telling this to Dave Schofield on one of our shows last week that this season is really tough for me to gauge. I want to be excited, like really, I want to be a 5, but I got to say that in reality, I'm probably about a 4 because I have my reservations about the team. I could be totally wrong, but at the same time, that's probably where I'm at, about a 4. Most of the time, I'm about a 4.5. So I'm just dialed back a little bit. What about you? How positive are you about this?
See, you're going to laugh. I'm at a 4 actually as well, but for a different reason.
Okay.
I'm at a 4 because I'm really tired of NBA basketball. I'm tired of NBA free agency. I'm glad that the Warriors lost. The NBA free agent period and NBA talk has been so strong this offseason that I'm completely exhausted with the NBA. I really don't watch baseball that much. I've watched a lot of soccer, so that's done. I'm just kind of ready for some football. I mean, I did something, Jeff, and we'll touch upon it later in the show. I actually listened to a press conference, and as you well know, Jeff,
Oh
if
my
if
god.
I listen to a press conference, that means I'm probably at 4.25.
Yeah. I mean, you're typically like a 2 at this time of year. This time of
One,
year. You will
one and a
wow,
half,
okay.
one and a half,
If we're being
one and a half.
honest, all right. And then you ramp up to like a 5 once the season starts. For me, like I'm always around a 4. But when you look at it this way, I mean, I agree with you. I don't like hearing about the NBA, which is almost ad nauseum right now. Um, I I I was having this conversation with my family this weekend because I was back home with family, and my brother has gotten into Australian rules football and European soccer, and he was telling me how he likes it almost more than the NFL. And for
Huh?
me,
Aussie rules football?
yeah, I mean, he's because there's no commercials. He says it's exciting. I told him, I said, I couldn't disagree more that the NFL is the only sport that I could sit down. I don't care if it's Thursday night football and it's the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Tennessee Titans. I'm watching. I am.
Oh yeah.
Any other sport, I'm not watching. Like I'll watch the Pirates because I'm a Pirates fan, even though they're awful. I'll watch the Pirates. I'm not going to sit down and watch the Yankees play the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Basketball, don't really care. Hockey, I love the Penguins. I'll watch every game I can, but I'm not going to watch the Vancouver Canucks go against the Edmonton Oilers. Not going to do it. But football, yes.
Well, before we jump into some Steeler stuff, people, please pray for Jeff. He said he would watch the Pirates in July. Like that's like painful, right? Watching the Pirates in July is painful.
Hey, they lost
And
8 in a row, man. That takes a lot of practice to lose 8 games in a row.
and watching the Titans play the Jags.
You're telling me you wouldn't tune in?
No, I don't. I
I
don't.
would.
Especially
I would.
especially like on a Thursday. I mean, I think they played in the color rush, and I
Yep.
think the Jags, somebody had a rust colored uniform
It
or
was that
somebody. I was like, I'm good.
It was that nasty gold that looked like you were like, oh, that was bad.
Yeah, it
But
was
I
like
just I
light
just
puke.
love I just love the NFL game, and it's just the NFL game. I'm not going to sit down and watch Alabama play some powder puff team from the MAC or something like that. It's just the NFL. I love watching the NFL. I love the pageantry of it. I love how these guys are playing for millions of dollars in their jobs sometimes. Um, I just think I love it. Love the game. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL is, what do they say? It's America's passion. They say baseball is America's pastime, but the NFL is America's passion.
I've
Uh,
never heard that. That's really good. I like
I
that.
think that's I can't credit myself for that. I would like to. I would like to take credit for that, but I can't. But let's jump into some Steelers stuff.
Okay.
Big news. A couple of things in terms of Tomlin's extension, and another interesting tidbit. Colbert came out and he didn't get an extension, by the way, and his contract is year to year. Give me your thoughts on the Tomlin extension. Good, bad. Why do you think they did it? What's your overall thoughts on Mike Tomlin's extension?
I thought the extension was justifiable for a couple reasons. Number one, I felt like, and this is something Dave Schofield told me after he saw it, that he was basically Art Rooney was basically appeasing both camps, the get rid of Tomlin camp and the extend Tomlin camp by finding that middle ground. He didn't get that 2-year extension that most coaches get with the Steelers when they have 2 years left. He just got one. I do think that it is noteworthy. Not saying that this is guaranteed to be truth, but I do think it's noteworthy that his contract will end the same time that Ben Roethlisberger's contract ends. The more I think about it, the more I feel that if Ben Roethlisberger is going to be done after this contract, that would be the time for the Steelers to start anew with a new coach if they wanted to do that. And it's a big if, because in those 3 years, if they win a Super Bowl or win, whatever, I don't think they're going to get rid of Mike Tomlin no matter what. But if he's not doing what they want, if he has more seasons like last year, then they can move on and they'll get a new coach and they'll have a new quarterback, and that's kind of how you want to restart. So for me, I thought the Mike Tomlin extension was fine. I think fans are way too preoccupied with the fact that he still has 2 years left on his current deal anyways. So even though that's when they always tend to do business with their coaches, that's just it. Kevin Colbert, I'm not buying his I told him this was my decision. I want to do year to year. BS is what I'm saying there. No one says I don't want job security, and
Yeah.
that's essentially what he is saying. Is that yeah? That's we'll just go year to year. I want to give all no. The team said we're going to go year to year, and he's regurgitating that information. But what did you think about all that?
I think you're spot on with Colbert. Nobody wants to go year to year. I mean, you want security. Any of you guys out there that are married, try going home and telling your wife, oh yeah, my job is month to month. I'm just trying to put it in I'm trying to put it in regular folks lexicon. You know, theirs is year to year, or would be month to month. Oh yeah, I just told my employer, yeah, I just want to work month to month. See how that goes when you go home and tell that to your wife. Hint, don't do it because it won't go well. So I agree with you 100% there. I agree with you on Tomlin, but I'm going to add this. I think it's all, I think they're appeasing Ben Roethlisberger. I don't think it's the crowd that kind of wants him gone, people who want him to stay. I think it's all to do with Ben Roethlisberger. I think at this point in time, if you want to maximize what you're going to get out of Ben Roethlisberger, you keep Mike Tomlin as the coach. That's his guy. They're at the hip. I mean, he understands Ben. He manages Ben well. He doesn't criticize Ben publicly. They do their thing. Ben never says anything negative about Tomlin, and Tomlin doesn't say anything negative about Ben. They're just at the hip. That's his guy. They're either going to do it together or they're not. You don't bring in a new guy with a 37-year-old quarterback to start over. You just don't do it. So as long as Ben is a Steeler, Tomlin will be the coach. And I think you're 100% right in terms of post Ben, that's when you make that decision. And if Tomlin were to be very successful over these next three, go to multiple playoff appearances, go deep, win a Super Bowl, then Tomlin absolutely would be the coach to start that new era, because why would you not want a two-time winning Super Bowl coach to coach up a young football team? So I think we see eye to eye. But one thing before we move on, I want to ask you, do you envision all three of those guys being gone after 2021? That's Colbert, Tomlin, and Big Ben.
I'm going to say no, because I do see the Steelers having success in the next 3 years. I don't see repeats of 2018. I guess to me, I see this team trending more towards 2017, maybe not to the 13-3 extent that they had as their record, but ultimately I see them having success and being able to prove that the drafting is doing Kevin Colbert's doing his job in the draft category and Tomlin's doing his job in the coaching category. What say you? Do you think they're all back in 3 years?
No, I think two of the three will be back after. I think two of the three will be there after 2021. I don't think Ben is playing after 2021. He didn't want to. He didn't want to say anything about that specifically in his interview. I think the interview was Friday, but I just don't think Ben is a guy that's going to play beyond 41. And I know you'll find this funny, Jeff. I don't think he's taking care of his body well enough, like a Tom Brady, to extend his career past his 40-year-old birthday. And I just think he'll move on. So I think two of the three will be there. I think Colbert will be there for sure. And I think Tomlin will be there with them. So I think it'll be two of the three, those three. But let me jump into a couple of transactions, a couple of camp notes. And then want to get your perspective in terms of camp over this weekend. Mike Hilton signed his exclusive rights free agent deal. Let me give you the definition, listeners, if you're not certain as to what that is. And these are players that have accrued less than 2 seasons in the league. They are technically exclusive property of the team, which sounds bad. But should the team apply the 1-year ERFA, the player has no ability to negotiate with another team. So that's where he's slotted in terms of what he was as a free agent. He's an ERFA. What's your thoughts on Hilton signing that?
He had to. And the Steelers had him right where they want him. The Steelers said, look, man, you're asking for this. We're not going to give you that. We'll give you this. And if he says no, then you say, look, then you can hold out. And that's fine. We have other cornerbacks on the roster. but it's not going to help you in the long run. So what he did is he basically said, okay, I can sign this. I can either try to continue to work out maybe a new deal, a different deal, but at the same time, I can go out and kind of use this year to prove myself going forward. And Dave Schofield said this last week. He said that, you know, you would give him a new contract like Alejandro Villanueva. They viewed him as the guy at that position for the next 2 to 3 years. Is Mike Hilton the guy at slot cornerback for the next 2 to 3 years? I don't know if he is. And if he isn't, they have his rights the next 2 seasons. They have it this year as the exclusive rights, next year as a restricted free agent. It's a good business move. It's lousy for him, but I'm not going to hate the Steelers for following the collective bargaining agreement that was signed by the players. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I mean, one of the tidbits about being an ERFA is you have to be undrafted. And unfortunately for him, he was undrafted, and that's why he slots to be an ERFA. And I think you're right in terms of how the Steelers should have played it, because they have him as an RFA and potentially as a UFA, unrestricted free agent. And that's the interesting thing, because there aren't too many restricted free agents anymore due to the collective bargaining agreement and how it's set up. Because if you're drafted, you sign a 4-year deal. But you touched upon one thing that I wanted to ask you real quickly is, why don't I think he's one of the best slot corners in the National Football League. That's why I was surprised over the course of this offseason as to so many people talking about how it might be a camp battle at that slot corner position with Cam Sutton. Like with Mike Hilton, I mean, Mike Hilton is nasty. I love Mike Hilton. I mean, he's one of my favorite guys on that defense, particularly his ability to blitz, his ability to cover, and he's graded really well in terms of Football Focus. Not to say that that's the be all to end all in terms of how good he is as a player, but I think he's played excellent football over the last couple of years, and he's been a find for them.
Yeah, 2017 Mike Hilton was a beast. 2018 Mike Hilton had that elbow injury. Second half of the season got picked on a little bit. I think about that Raiders game where he blew that assignment, gave up that touchdown, which ended up being the game-winning touchdown. I don't know. I like Mike Hilton. I'm not saying I don't like him. He's a great blitzer. You said he's not afraid to get into the fray in terms of tackling and things like that. I guess for me though, Mike Hilton is a player that I'm not saying he's replaceable, but he has yet to show me that he's deserving of a big deal, a big contract in that regard. So I like Mike. I don't want you to take my words as I don't like him. I think he's a good player. I think he deserves a contract, but then again, I'm not going to blame the Steelers for utilizing the rules and the rights that they have when it comes to negotiations.
You think he played so poorly last year that there should be a camp battle for that slot corner position?
I don't think it's a camp battle. I really don't. I think that was kind of just a narrative that got developed. I think Cam Sutton would fill in for him. I think Cam Sutton will come in specific sub packages, maybe in dime, if they want to put in another cornerback, especially with how thin they are at safety. I think they're just seeing what they have, you know? If Cam Sutton's playing well, that's a good thing. That means they have some depth at the position. So I don't think it's a true camp battle. I think it's Mike Hilton's job to lose.
Keeping it with the secondary, how surprised were you that Artie Burns is going to get, I believe, I think it's a roster bonus of $800K?
He got it today.
Did we talk about that on earlier shows? I thought he was going to get it.
Yeah.
And I thought he was going to get it primarily because of one of the P's in the 3 P's that I always talk about when I talk about players and their future on teams is pedigree. He was a former first-round draft pick. Teams don't want to embarrass themselves by cutting first-round draft picks. And I think at $800K, because it's not too expensive in terms of a cap hit, why not keep the guy?
The Steelers never gave up on Artie Burns. The fans gave up on Artie Burns. And Artie Burns might have given up on Artie Burns. But the Steelers never did. And if you read between the lines of all the stuff that was written, the people that are in that room, in that headquarters, was that Artie Burns was continuing to work hard in this offseason to prove himself, and he has a lot to prove so far in camp. Now, it's only been 3 practices, but still, so far in camp, he's played very well. He is making plays, he's getting his hands on the football. I know it's practice, but it's a step in the right direction for a guy that is really struggling from a confidence standpoint. I wasn't shocked that Artie Burns got his $800,000 signing bonus because I don't know, like the pressure is on him to perform based on the fact that he didn't get his 5th-year option picked up. If he plays well, he's going to get a new deal either at the Steelers or somewhere else. I personally think that he's going to be good depth. That's the hope. I hope he plays well because then he's going to be, if let's say Joe Hayden gets hurt, Steven Nelson gets hurt, they have a guy with some of the P's that you spoke about waiting in the wings.
And he don't want to drive for Uber or Lyft, so I'm sure he's
somebody would pick him up. Somebody would pick him up.
Yeah, you are absolutely correct. One of the other big notes this week before camp actually started, probably at the same time that camp started, was that Watt started on the PUP list. And let me give you guys just a quick breakdown of the PUP list. Is that players who start the preseason on the PUP list may not practice until cleared by the team's medical personnel. They can attend team meetings and work out. Once cleared, they can return to the field. If a player practices during training camp, they are not eligible for the PUP list. Instead, the team has to cut the player or put them on injured reserve. And if a player finishes the preseason on a PUP list, they can be placed on the regular season PUP list. Also, if they are on the regular season PUP list, players on that list may not practice or play for the first 6 weeks of the season. Any thoughts on his injury, him being placed on the PUP list? Should Steeler fans be concerned?
No, they shouldn't. They're just being cautious. He participated in the conditioning test on Thursday of last week. On the very last rep, he said he had some tightness afterwards. And like Mike Tomlin said after that practice, there is no reason to rush him back. Let him rest. Make sure his hamstring is 100% healthy before he thinks about getting back on the field. Because the last thing you need is, if you think back to Mike Mitchell's first year in Pittsburgh, he had a groin injury in training camp. It did not heal properly. He had issues all season, and he ended up having to have surgery in the offseason on that groin. That's what you're trying to avoid. So you tell TJ Watt, look, you've been in the system for 2 years. You're playing great. You're a good high IQ player. You need to just rest. Don't strain it. Don't re-injure it. Don't re-aggravate it. Just rest. Make sure it's right. And people forget last year, similar injury. I'm not sure if it was the same leg or not. And look what happened. He was healthy for the regular season, put up double-digit sacks, had a tremendous year. So I'm not worried about it at all.
Yeah, I don't think fans need to worry about his work ethic if he's in shape. The Watt brothers take it seriously. All 3 are in the NFL. They know what it takes to perform at a high level. Those guys work hard and they bust it consistently. But Jeff, give me your thoughts on the first couple of days of camp. What's circulating out there? What do you think Steeler fans should know and hear about these first couple of days at camp? Any standouts, any winners, any losers?
Well,
what's the big news coming out of camp right now?
Let's talk injuries first. Outside of TJ Watt, Johnny Holton, who is a free agent pickup, wide receiver, Darius Hayward-Bay type. He has a hamstring as well. Not really news there. Today, Sean Davis supposedly had a finger injury. Could have been a dislocation. Not the end of the world for a safety, but he might miss some time. Those are the only real injuries that have been noted so far. In terms of the 3 days of practice, the first 2 were in shorts. And then today, Sunday, when this is being recorded, was their first padded practice. So it was their first look at the backs on backers drill, which Mike Tomlin loves. He kept Vince Williams out of the drill today, probably so that he didn't kill players like Jalen Samuels and Benny Snell Jr. But I always find it interesting, and I did this the last 2 years. Like when James Conner was a rookie, I was really anxious to hear how he did in this drill with Jalen Samuels last year and then with Benny Snell this year. And so far, out of those 3 from the first day of padded practice, the first time in that drill, Benny Snell has represented himself the best of the three in terms of pass protection. James Conner was ridiculed for his pass protection. Jalen Samuels is basically turned into a turnstile or getting trucked on every occasion. Benny Snell held his own. He's a bigger guy. James Conner was working with him. On the defensive side, Ola Denye was very impressive in this drill. They said that he's looking really, really good, and people forget that last season he was potentially going to be a big time. Was going to be the fourth outside linebacker until he hurt his hamstring in week 4 of the preseason, and they put him on injured reserve.
Jeff, let
So,
me pause you. Let me pause you real quick before you finish with your camp recap for the last
okay.
3 days. Can you please say Ola's name incorrectly? So, listeners, if you're out there checking out the super chat feature, it's where you can contribute to the show, ask a question, get bumped up to the top of the list. So, we're trying to do a tip jar for mispronunciations of names. So, Jeff, rewind about 15 seconds and say his name incorrectly so somebody can.
Oler, it's if I'm channeling my Western Pennsylvanian, it's Oler Adini or something like that. Adini.
There you go. So if you're out there, you want to contribute to the program using the super chat feature. Anytime we mispronounce a name, we're not going to do it intentionally. Please tip us a buck
There you go.
or anything you want.
Let's hear other notables so far. And again, 2 non-padded practice, 1 padded practice. Juju Smith-Schuster has been a freaking monster. He's been catching deep balls from Ben. They do their 7 shots to start practice, where they have 7 plays from the 2-point conversion line, and it's offense versus defense. You stop them, defense wins. Offense, best out of 7. He's caught several touchdowns in that regard. Dante Moncrief has been turning heads. James Washington has looked good. It's tough with running backs because I know that I was reading about how Webb has been looking good. They're not really hitting. So
Is that a bad thing, Jeff? Though you're talking about the wide receivers doing work during the first 3 days. Is it? I know it's good because they're playing well, but is it bad because they're killing the secondary as well? Like
the first 2 days is like touch football. It's really tough to gauge. I
okay,
mean, because you're really running 7-on-7s. They do have some 11-on-11 periods, but it's mainly 7-on-7. I don't know. Anyways, defensively, there hasn't been much to note because they can't hit anybody until today. So we'll just see how it goes. I do know that Artie Burns has had a pick. Cameron Sutton has had a couple. Brian Allen got his hands on a football once. Haven't heard much about. I always look for rookie reports. Deontay Johnson's conditioning has been great. Had a first couple practices have been rough, but he's getting acclimated. Had a good practice today, from what I read. Haven't heard anything about guys like Ulysses Gilbert, Sutton Smith. All those guys have pretty much just been regular camp bodies at this point because they're still
the dashes.
yes,
the,
exactly.
the
I'll tell you,
dashes.
but here's the last thing I'll say about the first 3 days is that so far the quarterback play outside of number 7 has not been very good. Joshua Dobbs was the second string quarterback day 1. Ben leaves the field. Dobbs comes on. First pass, interception. Second pass, interception. Third pass, overthrows wide open receiver. Great start. Mason Rudolph, his second day, was his turn with the number 2s. He doesn't do too much better, but does orchestrate a touchdown. So I'm sure there's some nerves going on with those guys and trying to win that battle for the backup spot. So that's really all that's been going on. Juju Smith-Schuster continues to be a prized possession of the Steelers fan base, participating in a gender reveal with a couple. He autographed a guy's bald head, and then the guy got his autograph, I guess, tattooed into his head.
We're gonna come back to that, Jeff. We're gonna come back to that, Jeff, because we're gonna bring back our WTF segment, and I
Okay.
want to ask you about that specifically. But I'm glad you brought up Juju because that's a great transition into my next question. We've
Okay.
all heard about Mr. Third and Fifth show up to the Raiders camp in a hot air balloon,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
and Juju did not meet with reporters. From what I've read, he just kind of slipped into camp and essentially said, I'm just here to do work. So you have no media versus Mr. Air Balloon. Let me ask you, when it comes to no media versus Mr. Third and Fifth, is look, I did a show a long time ago about Juju Gets It. I mean, is this an act? I mean, is this like I've never seen anyone just consistently dot all the I's, all the T's, and do the absolute right thing at the right time consistently. So it just made sense that Juju's would come to camp in a nondescript fashion compared to Mr. Third and Fifth, aka Mr. Hot Air Balloon. Like that was just Juju's reaction was just perfect Juju. Is this an act? Is Juju for real? I mean, like, what's going on here with
Well, to
this?
give some love to another writer, Mark Cavalli of The Athletic, last week before training camp, did a really good article. I actually really enjoyed reading this piece about how he interviewed a lot of players in the locker room about what's Juju Smith-Schuster really like. Like, is this really what he's like? And they were very candid. It was a really good read. If you're a subscriber to The Athletic, I definitely recommend you check it out. But I think that Juju Smith-Schuster just understands the game far better than anyone else. He knew that. Well, I think that probably the leaders on the team probably also said to the guys like, "Hey, we're not doing anything crazy. Like, just show up for work." Second thing, I think Juju also realized that if he's going to replace Antonio Brown on the football field, whether it's production wise, that's not even important in this debate. If he's going to replace Antonio Brown, he has to do things that Antonio Brown never did. And that was just shut up and go to work. You know, don't come into camp on a helicopter. Don't have a antique Rolls Royce roll up in a antique Rolls Royce with a driver and you're
Autograph.
wearing and that was the year before that when he showed up in a Rolls Royce that had his autograph on the side of it. So if Juju is, I don't know, maybe it's his agent, maybe it's his friends, maybe it's his family. Someone's telling this kid, or maybe he's just that smart, is getting him great advice saying, look, just don't do any of that stuff. Just show up, no fanfare, nothing crazy, do work, put in work at camp, be the number one, be the leader, and you'll be fine. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Steelers fan base absolutely adores this kid. They adore him. My gosh, that kid. Maybe it was when he knocked out Vontez Perfect. Maybe that was maybe that was the starting point because I said in our post game show that if he would have ran for mayor of Pittsburgh that night, he would have won by a landslide. Would have won by a landslide.
Knockout 55. That's his slogan. KO 55. He wins in a landslide. His political affiliation would be Northside Steelers political party, and he would win. I think, I mean, he acts in such the right way that it's absolutely uncanny, especially how it plays off of AB. It's almost as if he has a bug in AB's house. Like he just knows that AB is going to do something ridiculous to show up to camp. So if I just do the opposite, I'm going to win. He's going to look like an idiot. It's almost it's a passive aggressive but positive. It's weird though because it feels passive aggressive. It feels at times like he's taking small jabs. Like it feels like body shots, like in boxing, where he's just beating up AP's body, just putting body shots in the tank, and he just keeps landing blows and body shots to AB's image, where he continues to make AB look like, why am I saying his name? I should be saying Mr. Third and Fifth. Excuse me. He's making Mr. Third and Fifth look like the guy that he is, that I talked about years ago when he autographed the Rolls Royce as a me guy. And Juju just comes off as a we guy.
Well, let's take a quick sidebar here because I have to say this. If Juju Smith-Schuster is getting some solid advice from someone, or he is ridiculously intelligent and knows how to play the game, which I think it's a little bit of both, Mr. Hot Air Balloon is the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Someone's telling him to do I mean, you talk about a guy that when he left Pittsburgh, all he did was badmouth everybody, and it was all everyone else's fault. You would think that when he moved to his new locale, that he would say, "Hey, basically, I want to start fresh. I'm just here to work." You come floating in on a hot air balloon, and
and injured.
not only
And
that, you can't even practice. You are on the pup list to start training camp, and you show up on a hot air balloon. If I'm John Gruden, I am saying, what in the world? But he can't be surprised. No one can be surprised. I wasn't surprised when Le'Veon Bell had a little stupid rant about how he hates social media. Then stay off social media. That's obvious.
no, he has to sell his raps.
Exactly. Well,
Yes,
that's awful. But anyways, Antonio Brown. The Raider fans can't be surprised by this. He's an idiot. I hate to say that, but he's an idiot. Who's
here's the
feeding this guy information?
Here's the funny thing, Jeff. I get my hair cut, obviously, in the Bay Area, and my barber shop is, full of Raider fans, one Niner fan, bunch of Raider fans, and they're already shaking their heads. Like they weren't particularly happy with the hot air balloon. They're just like, well, I just hope he produces on the field. They're like they are bracing themselves from the hurricane known as Mr. Third and Fifth that is getting ready to blow through Alameda County. They're just bracing themselves.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's just I don't know. What's
Jeff,
you?
Jeffs, are you
You.
looking at the live chat?
I am. We have a couple of super chats to get to, but are we at that point in the show? You were the one with the rundown.
Yes. I want you to tease a question in the live chat while we jump into our WTF, and then we'll just jump back into what some of the listeners are saying in the live chat. There was a question that my cousin posted on Facebook about the best wide receiver in Steeler history. Since we were talking about Juju and AB, I think it's a good time to ask the question. And he threw up, there were a couple of names that he threw out there: Stallworth, Swan, Hines Ward. But in particular, he felt that Mr. Third and Fifth was the best wide receiver in Pittsburgh Steeler history. So the question that I have for all of you guys on the live chat, or even if you want to comment on the show on the website when it gets posted, who is the best wide receiver in Pittsburgh Steeler history?
And it's between Swan, Stallworth, Ward, or Antonio Brown.
Yes, of those four, who do you think is the best?
Well, let's go ahead and do your WTF, and then we'll rally back. We'll
We'll
get
rally
some
back
live.
to
We'll
that.
get some live chat stuff going on, and then we'll finish the show that way.
Well, let me jump into my first WTF.
Okay.
What's up with the dude with the autograph tattoo on your head? Let me just riddle me this, Jeff. Where does he work?
Somewhere where he wears a hat.
that's great.
I don't know where the dude works.
He works at Lids.
Maybe
works,
that'd be a good place to work. Yeah.
He work. What the WTF? What the? You autograph another dude's. First of all, autographing anything in your head is just asinine. Look, I'm losing my hair. So is Jeff.
Yes.
So we are very sensitive about the real estate in our hair and in our heads, and we don't like to lose hair. So I'm definitely not losing hair for an autograph of another dude. WTF? I'm not a tattoo guy as it is, but an autograph tattoo in your dome of another dude's head, another dude's name in your head. Come on, man. WTF? What's your thoughts on that, Jeff?
It's not my cup of tea. I'm not a tattoo. I'm not a tattoo guy, let alone a head tattoo guy. So I would have to say that this is a little bit much. I don't know. I guess I never would even think. Supposedly he has a looks like a helmet. So he's got like the gold line, and he's got the logo on one side of his head. It's got to look ridiculous. That's
Riddle me this, right? Imagine if you had Mr. Third and Fifth tattooed in your head and he acts like a turd like he did. What do you do then? Can you get it erased?
you could. It would be expensive. See, that's the thing, man. I am cautious on just buying a jersey, let alone ever like getting something tattooed on my body. I don't even wear shirts. Like I have shirts that say Steelers 5-time Super Bowl champs. I don't wear those shirts anymore because they're 6-time Super Bowl champs. So it's outdated. I might wear it to the gym, but that's about it. So for me, I'm very cautious about anything that I do, let alone tattooing something like an autograph or a player. Like think about Rex Ryan when he got his wife in a Jets jersey tattooed on his leg or something. I don't know. I'm not a tattoo guy.
Yeah, I mean that's hilarious. Here's my other WTF. Baker Mayfield was ranked number 50 in the top 100 NFL players. I don't even got to say anything else. I just need to say that. That in and of itself should tell all fans that the top 100 list is BS. WTF. Baker Mayfield, a top 50 player in the National Football League? He's not even the best player on his team, let alone a top 50 player in the National Football League. That's ridiculous that Baker Mayfield, after 1 year, is a top 50. He was a top 50 guy. He would have hit that pass against Baltimore. Steelers could have went to the playoffs. Baker Mayfield top 50, more boundary to extend that drive, and maybe the Browns could. Yeah. Your thoughts?
I have my issues with the list as it is, and it's definitely yeah. There's also a list of the most. I think they did a list of the most hated players in the NFL, and Ben Roethlisberger's always on that list for some reason, and so I'm not shocked that
Because of the
he was
radio show.
probably Ben was 44 on this list. He should probably be a little bit higher. I'm not saying he should be top 10. I'm not saying he should be top 25, but he should probably be a little bit higher. Baker Mayfield being 50, that's a joke. And so, like you said, when you see that, it loses some validity. Now, Juju was 47. You agree with that? He wasn't even ranked after his rookie year.
I agree. Juju
Can't
should have
hear
been
you. There you
47.
go.
His numbers were fantastic. His numbers were fantastic. I agree. Juju should have been 47. He definitely should have been higher than Baker Mayfield. But if Juju was 47, Baker should be like 210.
At least, yeah, he's got to prove it. Everyone wants to crown this guy. And what has he proven? That's the question.
He's proven that he talks too much, particularly about his teammates' contract negotiations. That's what he does.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's true too.
So,
All right.
Jeff, let's
You
jump
ready?
into that question that we teased in the live chat. What's your thoughts on the question about the best wide receiver in Steeler history?
It's tough for me to answer that question honestly because I wasn't alive to see Stallworth and Swan in person. I've seen a lot of videos, I heard my dad and my family talk about them a lot, but I have yet to see. I know that Lynn Swan did not play long, and so his durability is in question. But John Stallworth did play a long time, put up a lot of really good numbers. Um, as for Hines Ward, he wasn't the flashy guy, but he changed the game. Plain and simple, change the game. They put a rule in place for him and the crackback blocks and things of that nature. But Antonio Brown, if you're looking if I look for a player that was transcendent and put up the numbers, it's also tough to compare Swan and Stallworth in that generation to the modern game because they throw the ball so many more times. I remember watching an NFL films on Swan and Stallworth, and they showed this clip where They were both back in Pittsburgh for a Steeler game, and they were standing outside the locker room as the players were going out to the field. And Swan said, "Hey, did you see last week Antonio Brown got targeted 16 times in a game?" He said, 16 times? That was like 3 weeks for me. That was like, so it's tough to compare. It is tough to compare. But when I look at the live chat here, a lot of people are saying Hines Ward, Antonio Brown, Stallworth, Hines, Ward, Stallworth, Lynn Swan, Hines changed the game with his blocking. Ward. I don't know. What do you think, Lance? What are your thoughts on it?
I'm a little older than you, but not of the age where I was probably old enough to appreciate Stallworth and Swan. I mean, you just love those guys because of the lore. Both of those guys have gold jackets. What they did for the four-time Super Bowl runner, the Steel Curtain team, Sean Stallworth's longevity, being a really big wide receiver, particularly for that era, being a deep threat, big wide receiver. Lynn Swan with the acrobatics, being a deep threat. You love those guys. I mean, it's tough. I think Hines Ward definitely is not. The one thing about Hines changing the game is, with his blocking. But, the funny thing is, shoulder pads don't catch passes. I mean,
Yeah.
hands do. I appreciate his blocking, but this is a wide receiver position. Hines, excellent wide receiver. I think at one point in time, Hines will have a gold jacket as well. Two-time Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP. So I think he will get a gold jacket. But I hate to say it, man. I think Mr. Third and Fifth just might be the best wide receiver in Pittsburgh Steelers history. I mean, you look at the numbers that him and Big Ben have put up together. You look at his statistics over the last 4 to 5 years, they're absolutely mind-blowing. And some of that is obviously because of the era in which he plays, to your point of the 16 targets. But as much as we don't like Mr. Third and Fifth, and I'm still blocked by him on Twitter, he's a damn good football player. I mean, as much as he's a me guy, his football is pretty much undeniable. I mean, the guy is a hell of a wide receiver, hell of a player, and his work ethic is second to none. I believe he was a 6th-round draft pick, and he's made himself into quite arguably the greatest wide receiver for the Steelers. We're not talking about for the Arizona Cardinals, it's probably Larry Fitzgerald, but we're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're not talking about a ragtag football team that has no history and that hasn't had a ton of very good players. So I'm going to say it's Mr. Third and Fifth.
All right. Let's get to some super chat questions that we've had waiting, as well as some other questions in the live chat before we call it a show. Sound good?
Absolutely.
All right. So Tom, he puts $5 into the tip jar. We appreciate it. He said, "Thank God football's back. What do you guys think of our overall roster depth outside of wide receiver and cornerback? What position aside from quarterback worries you the most?"
We talked about it, I think, on a couple of shows. Safety bothers me. The safety depth, the outside linebacker depth, I think, is also an issue. And I think the tight end position on the offensive side of football, that depth is an issue for me.
I could not put it any better myself. But Tom puts $5 more in the tip jar. Says another question: does Joshua Dobbs stay on the roster, or do the Steelers trade him for someone of need?
Well, to trade somebody's got to want the guy. I don't think anybody would want Joshua Dobbs in a trade. So I'm going to say if he's not on the roster, he's getting cut.
Okay. I'll agree with that. I don't think that there'll be a trade partner because if right now the Steelers have their 3 quarterbacks. So unless Delvin or I think it's Delvin. No, it's not Delvin.
It's Dash.
Yeah.
It's Dash.
Unless that guy performs well enough that someone becomes expendable, I don't think it matters.
Let me explain before you jump into the next question. Let me explain real quickly what we mean by when we say Dash.
Yeah, because someone might be listening for the first time.
So Dash is simply when you look at the depth chart, it'll go first team, second team, third team. And at this stage of the season, they typically have fourth, possibly fourth and fifth. Fourth and fifth is typically on the depth chart a dash. There's nobody there. So we are considering these guys dashes, that they don't show up because they're so insignificant in terms of the depth chart. They're just dashes and not names. So Devlin, or whatever his name is, he's just a dash. He's Mr. Dash number one.
Yeah, exactly. So just to be clear here, a lot of people might think, okay, there's all these questions in the live chat. How is he reading those specific questions? They're using what's called the super chat feature, which is a feature that if you're on your phone, a tablet, or a desktop, right where it says you can chat publicly, on the right, there's a little dollar sign. If you click that dollar sign, you can donate any amount of money to the show. It goes directly to the show. We appreciate all the support. You don't have to use it, but you can. And if you do use it, you will be guaranteed to have your question answered on the show. So Isaac, longtime listener of the show, gives $20 in the tip jar. And he said, this is just for future screw-ups on mispronunciation of names, LOL. So Isaac, you're good for the season, man. You covered all of Lance's mess-ups. So
Oh, yeah.
good on you.
I'm going to mess up Ola's name quite a few times.
How do you say his name? His last name?
I don't know.
Here's a question. What about Matty F? How do you say his last name? The right tackle?
Feeler?
Ah, there you go. Dollar. Filer.
It's Filer. See, there you go. There you go.
All right. Kathy puts $5 in the tip jar. Says, finally made a live chat. So she's been trying to get to be here in the live chat. I actually had someone email me and say, what is the schedule? Because they want to be a part of the live chat and be able to use the super chat feature and stuff like that. And so in a few weeks, whenever Lance can get his soccer schedule set up for the fall, we will set up dates and times for all of our shows. So you can try to tune in as best as possible. So, all right. Is there anything else for the good of the order, Lance?
I think that's it. Take us out, Jeff. What you got coming up on the website for all the listeners, readers, in terms of camp? What you got on deck?
Well, I'll tell you what, our training camp confidential is kind of wrapping up tomorrow. So if you haven't checked that out yet, we were running content all weekend. And so on the website, you'll see it says, welcome to the training camp confidential. There's over 28 articles in there, everything from predictions to breakdowns. Check it out. It's worth looking into. Other than that, you get daily recaps from training camp where if someone does an interview, we'll get that video. We'll put it in there. Mike Tomlin's press conferences will be there. Some tidbits about players that did well, players that didn't do well, things of that nature. So make sure you check those out, as well as our live updates. We have a Twitter feed that gets going. So if you're wondering what's happening live at practice, you can follow that Twitter feed, which is in the article, and you'll get a feel for what's really going on at St. Vincent College in Latrobe. So, Tom puts $11 in the tip jar. Says, can we please use the tip jar and proceeds from the touchdowns insurance to get internet for Brian's internet bandwidth and recording equipment? Now, Tom, I got to be honest. I know where Brian lives. He is in a tough spot when it comes to internet. But I'll just put it that way without getting into details. He doesn't have a lot of options. We'll put it that way. So it's one of the downfalls of being where he is. So if he needs some assistance, I'll be glad to help him. He's working on it. I'll put it that way. We'll say that, putting it that way. So, and Lance, you've had to deal with connectivity issues already.
What was the name of Michael Jackson's amusement park? What was it?
Oh, shoot.
Not Neverland, where he had the Ferris wheel. Well, anyway, the reason
it was Neverland Ranch, wasn't it?
Neverland Ranch. Yeah, I was going to ask, does Who's Bad live at Neverland Ranch? I mean, is that the only place you can't? Because I call him Who's Bad because his initials are BAD.
Right. Yes.
So Who's Bad? So I'm thinking like maybe he's in Neverland. That's the only place in the world that you can't get decent connectivity. But I shouldn't talk because I had to change providers because my connectivity was bad consistently.
There you go. I can't believe we just talked about Neverland Ranch on this show. So that means it's time to call it a show. We thank you for listening. Remember, if you didn't know we have a YouTube channel, go to YouTube, search BTSC Steelers Radio, like the videos, give us a thumbs up, subscribe. That's important. We're almost to 3,000 subscriptions. I want to say we're at 2,960 some the last I checked. That's important to me. I want to get to 3,000 before the start of the season. So share it. We appreciate it. Also, if you're on any of our audio platforms, it's anywhere where you find podcasts, just search Behind the Steel Curtain, Steelers. You'll find us. Again, subscribe. If you're on iTunes, I've been asking for about a week now. I haven't seen any new ones. If you use iTunes, go to iTunes, go to our page, leave us a good review if you like the content, and give us a 5-star rating. It's only going to help us with our exposure and getting our name out there, which is what we ultimately want. So if you could do that, that'd be awesome. If you don't, it's not the end of the world, but we still appreciate you for listening. As Lance always says, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. We'll see you next week on another episode of The Standard is the Standard.